Hello cardboard lovers, it's Cardboard Badger here. I hope you're doing well, and today we have for you a brand new standard legal deck tech. We are going red and green with the GRUUL Gardener. As you can imagine, this is all about land, this is all about seeds. We are going to create a massive army of plants. We can go wide, we can go big. This has generated a massive amount of value, and I hope you enjoy this deck tech. So, jumping straight in with our creatures, we have a total of 17. We're going to be starting off with a playset of Elysian Caryatid. We have got, for 2 mana, 1 and a green, we have a 1/1 plant, and we can tap the plant and add 1 mana of any colour, and if you control a creature with a power 4 or greater, add 2 mana of any one colour instead. So, straight away, we are going to be trying to ramp in to our largest creatures. We do have the possibility, if things go really well, of actually dropping our 6 drops on turn 3, which is an amazing thing when it happens. Really important card, fixes our mana, ramps us up, a playset of. Continuing with the mana ramp, we have 3 copies of Lotus Cobra. Love the artwork on this one. For 2 mana, 1 and a green, we have a 2/1 snake. It has the Landfall trigger. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of any colour. We're also playing 2 copies of Gully the Generous. For 3 mana, 1 red and a green, we have a 3/3 Goblin Shaman. With each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So this is great because all of our creatures are non-human. It also means that our plant tokens that we're going to be generating, which are 0/1s, are now going to be 1/2s, which is vitally important if we're going to be going wide. Up next, we have 1 copy of Clothis, God of Destiny. For 3 mana, 1 red and a green, we have got a 4/5 god. It's got indestructible, and as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, it isn't a creature. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you can exile a card from a graveyard, so any graveyard, not just your opponent's, and if it was a land card, add 1 red or 1 green mana, so this gives us the opportunity to ramp even more. Otherwise you gain 2 life, and Clothis deals 2 damage to each opponent. So late game this is brilliant because each turn we possibly are going to be gaining 2 life, burning our opponent for 2. A wonderful card, and if it does happen to have the ability to be a creature because our devotion is high enough, then we have an indestructible creature on the board as well. Amazing, amazing card. Up next we have the key card. This is what the deck is all about. Centered around 3 copies of Phylath, World Sculptor. For 6 mana, 4 red and a green, we have a legendary creature, an elemental. It is a 5/5, and when the World Sculptor enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each basic land you control. It's an amazing card. Absolutely fantastic. So if we happen to have played this normally for 6 mana, we will then obviously get 6 plants, and they are pretty good for blockers. But we have the Landfall trigger, and this is the most important thing, because whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put 4 +1/+1 counters on a target plant you control. It could be the plant tokens we've just created, it could be one of our little mana dorks, our Elysian Caryatid, and making that a 5/5 and keeping that slightly safer, and we are going to be able to put counters every single time a land enters the battlefield. Amazing card. Up next we have 2 copies of Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. For 5 mana, 3 green, we have got another legendary creature, another elemental, and Soul of the Wild's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. So if we happen to have played this after our World Sculptor, this in theory is going to be a 6/6. More importantly, non-token creatures you control are forests in addition to their other types. So that means if we get the opportunity to play any of our other creatures, an Elysian Caryatid or a Lotus Cobra or Grumly or anything else, when that triggers and comes into the battlefield, it is an additional land, which is amazing because that creature will then trigger Landfall, and that will enable us to put more counters onto more of our plants. Amazing card. And our final creature, it's another massive one. We've got 2 copies of Ancient Green Warden for 6 mana, 4 green. We have another elemental. This time it's 5/7 and it's got reach, and you may play lands from your graveyard, which makes more sense when you see the land base at the end of this deck tech. Also, if we happen to be being milled out all the time, we will be able to play our lands that way. And if a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So even on its own, we play a land, we will get 2 triggers. The Lotus Cobra will then give us 2 additional mana. If we happen to have this out with our other Dream Elementals, the World Sculptor and the Ancient Green Warden, it gets absolutely ridiculous, because it will mean that every single time either a land comes in or a creature comes in, it is going to trigger twice, and that will enable us to put down 8 +1/+1 counters on a plant, and then another 8 +1/+1 counters from a land. The value is huge. Wonderful card indeed, and those are our 17 creatures. Up next, we are going to be going through our 20 non-creature spells, starting off with 1 copy of the Ozolith. For 1 mana, we have a legendary artifact with whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So as you can see, we have a large number of +1/+1 counters on our plants. If they die, we happen to have the Ozolith out, we can then reuse those and put them onto another creature in our next combat phase. We also have a selection of cards for our mana ramp and creating as many landfall triggers as possible, starting off with 2 copies of Reclaim the Wastes. For 1 green mana, we have a sorcery with Search Your Library. For a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Or we can kick it for an additional 3, so the grand total will be 4 mana, and if this spell was kicked, search your library for 2 basic land cards instead of 1. We're also going to have 2 copies of Cultivate. For 3 mana, 2 and a green, we have another sorcery with Search Your Library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, and put 1 onto the battlefield tapped, and the other into your hand, then shuffle your library. And we also have 1 copy of Roiling Regrowth. For 3 mana, 2 and a green, we have an instant with Sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. Next, we have 1 copy of Shock. For 1 red mana, we have an instant, and Shock deals 2 damage to any target. We're also going to be playing 1 copy of Fling. For 2 mana, 1 and a red, we have an instant, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature, and Fling deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. So you can just sacrifice your massive plant and then go in for the win. Excellent when you fling a plant. Really enjoy doing that one. We're also going to be playing 2 copies of Heroic Intervention. For 2 mana, 1 and a green, we have an instant with permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. Really important to try and keep an eye on our massive elementals like Ashaya and Phylath. We need them out to obviously create loads and loads of plants, so a little bit of support there to keep those around. And we have also got, and this card has been amazing, we have got 2 copies of Inscription of Abundance. For 2 mana, we have, for 1 and a green, an instant. We can choose 1, and if the spell is kicked, we can choose any of the number instead. So normally, we will be kicking this. We will get 2/+1 counters to put on a target creature. We gain life, X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control, which is usually a massive plant, and target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So this is huge. We're going to pay an additional 3 mana, so for 5 mana we can make a creature bigger, we can gain life, we can gain 20-30 life, and we get the opportunity to use that massive plant and attack one of their biggest threats. It could be in the air, it could be a death toucher. Amazing card indeed. Absolutely fantastic. We're also going to be playing 2 copies of Return to Nature. For 2 mana, 1 and green, we have an instant. We can choose one of the following: destroy a target artifact, an enchantment, or exile a target card from a graveyard. In addition to that, we have some card draw engines, starting off with 2 copies of Colossal Majesty. For 3 mana, 2 and a green, we have an enchantment with, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. This is going to be happening quite often, so the ability to refill our hand is really good. We also have 2 copies of Garruk's Uprising, another enchantment, 3 mana, 2 and a green. When Garruk's Uprising enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures you control have trample, so suddenly our amazing plants can trample in also, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. And we're also playing one copy of the Great Henge. For 9 mana, 7 green, we have a legendary artifact. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. We can tap it, add additional mana, 2 green, and we can gain 2 life as well. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and also draw a card. Obviously, all these +1/+1 counters, if we happen to have the Ozolith out, means we can keep replaying those counters and putting them on something else, hopefully something that has trample. And our final card, we have got 1 copy of Volcanic Geyser, or Geyser, depending on how you say it. X red, we have got an instant, and it deals X damage to any target. Next, we have our land base. We have a total of 23 lands, starting off with the most important land. We've got Fabled Passage. We're playing 2 copies. We can sacrifice the Fabled Passage, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Then, if you control 4 or more lands, untap that land. This is really good, just for the fact that if we happen to have Ancient Green Warden out, and we are having to play our Fabled Passages, they are going to sit there and we can play them every single turn, because we can play lands from our graveyard, which then gives us the opportunity, just from that Fabled Passage, to have 2 landfall triggers every single turn. Amazing card. In addition to that, we're also going to be playing 1 copy of Crag Crown Pathway, or possibly Timber Crown Pathway, depending on the actual colour that we're needing for a little bit of mana fixing. We are also going to be playing 1 copy of Temple of Abandon. Enters the battlefield tapped, but it gives us the opportunity to scry 1. And basic lands, we are going to be playing 13 forests, and finally 6 mountains. So there we have it, the end of our deck tech. Standard Legal, the GRUUL Gardener. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if there was a particular card that you would put in that I haven't mentioned, please let us know in the comments below. Always nice to hear your thoughts. Other than that, I'd just like to say thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this or any of the other videos on the channel, please like, share and subscribe, do the normal things. And also, if you would like more Cardboard Badger in your life, check out the descriptions below. There are plenty of links to where you can find us. Anyway, all I can say now is thank you for watching, and we will see you again soon here on Cardboard Badger.